While I was in college, I actually focused 90% of my time in building my business. So college was more a extracurricular activity for me. And that's a different thing that I didn't even complete college. I was not able to clear past TY BCom. We had commitment of almost 3.5 crores. And I'm talking about 1999. You can imagine that 3.5 crores is like, 40 crores today. So even without understanding what my business was, what the plan was, I ended up having that kind of money to run the business. Vijay is extremely passionate about the consumer. And just think about this concept of the sound box which he created. कि दुकानदार को सुनना चाहिए कि पैसा आ गया. No MBA, I'm sorry to say, no MBA or no Google or Flipkart or any of these large companies could even think about this, because for them, consumer insight comes from Excel sheets and surveys and whatever data or analytics they are seeing. But you need to connect emotionally to the consumer. Use the word gamification without even understanding what gamification is. People just think that because I can put a leaderboard or give you some points or put an avatar, suddenly I have made it into a game. It's absolutely not. Today's education is not going to prepare them for tomorrow.
In today's episode of Konversations Cafe Podcast, we have a very special guest who started playing games very early in his life and developed a game when he was 13. Yes, I'm not kidding. He developed a game when he was just 13 and he went on to become the founder of IndiaGames.com as well and sold off his company at a whopping $100 million. How did he do that? Well, we are going to figure out in this particular podcast, and we are going to figure out a lot more about products, gamification, what online gaming industry will look like in India, how products hook you up, and what exactly is he building in terms of GOQii. So there is a lot of business learning for you. If you are a student, if you're a gaming enthusiast, this is definitely going to be for you. So there's a lot that is packed in this particular podcast. I hope that you enjoy this. Do like this video if you liked it, share it with your friends, and help us by subscribing to this channel. The podcast with Vishal Gondal starts in 3, 2, 1. Thank you very much for making it, Vishal, on this very rainy day in Bombay. And
thanks for inviting me. And like I said that, initially I thought you had sent this invitation by mistake, because I'm not a big fan of IIM and MBAs in general. Yeah. And it'll be an interesting conversation. Clearly a counterpoint for sure.
Let me start then by, why do you not like IIM so much?
It's not like I don't like them. I just think that they are not prepared for today's business environment. MBAs, or let me use the word traditional MBAs, are always thinking from inside the box. They are all about looking at, let me use the word, old world concepts largely, which made sense during a particular point of time. Right. This is when, all the large companies wanted to hire managers. They created frameworks for teaching them and called it MBAs. But in today's world, especially when we are talking up so much of disruption, I believe that this creates a big challenge for people who are coming from that mindset. Right. And secondly, my belief is that in today's world, especially with the advent of ChatGPT, with what's happening in Web 3.0, you cannot do incremental innovation. So MBAs was all about incremental innovation and using all those Six Sigma and whatever. All those processes and frameworks do not work in a system where you are talking about leapfrogging or teleportation.
Right.
We are no longer talking about incremental innovation or transformation. There was this big talk about how do you transform a company. Abhi transform nahi hone wala hai. Abhi teleportation hone wala hai, literally. And for you to teleport, you need to be not a student of business, but you need to be a student of physics.
Right. Wow. You need to be a student of physics. Interesting. I got the metaphor here, Vishal, and I'm going to start this podcast with this question that I had in mind, which is a little metaphorical in nature as well. Ashneer Grover, who probably is the poster boy for the MBA community or the people beyond the MBA community now, has recently said that the government of India is gala ghot degi online industry ka with the 28% GST that they have announced. That brings me back to your article in 2021 that you wrote on real money gaming as well, which followed with a lot of lawsuits, as you mentioned as well. So what is your take, one, on this, that right now what is happening, on what Ashneer Grover has said, and on the leapfrogging that the industry could have done, which might be stalled right now?
So there were two debates over here. The first debate was, are these games of skill or games of chance and around that? Let's put it that way, that debate is still not fully answered. There are some gray areas. Some games are clearly games of skill, some are not, some are in the middle and so on. But the second thing, which I actually completely agree with the government, that what is the intent of the player? Now, let's say if you're playing a game like Call of Duty or Candy Crush, your primary intention is to have fun. Now, the minute you look at real money gaming, the intention is, if it's for fun, they can play the game with no money. Nobody's stopping them. The fundamental question here is that if my intent is to put money in a game with clearly the intention that I may actually win big or I may lose, in this scenario, it is surely something which any government should tax at the highest possible rate. The concept is similar when you are staying in a 5-star hotel or you are eating in a fine dine restaurant where you are paying luxury tax and premium versus when you are eating at a roadside restaurant. So the choice is of the customer. So in this case, I think the government has done a good job by saying, yes, just like alcohol, cigarettes, and all other luxury items, if you want to indulge, you pay the tax. So I think from that perspective, it is fair. Of course, from the gaming business perspective, people who were purely thinking of this from मैं कितना पैसा लगाऊंगा और कितना मिलेगा, those people may be dissuaded, but people who do this for hobby, enjoyment, addiction, whatever you call, they are absolutely free to do it, just like other activities where you and I pay tax. So I think that the debate here is less about whether it is right or wrong. It's more about, is it an indulgence or is it a necessity? For necessity items, of course, government you can say reduce GST for medicines, for education. These are necessities. But is this a necessity? I don't know.
From a product perspective, what makes these online games so lucrative, or why do we get hooked? Is it just the money that you earn? Is it just the promise that these companies do to you, or is there more that product managers or developers of these games put into it?
So let us first of all differentiate. I don't want to talk about game which involve money. Let's just keep that aside, because there the incentive is different for you to do it. It is about making money. Game may be very boring also, but if you think आपका 10 रुपया 100 रुपया हो रहा है तो आप वो खेल रहे हो. So let us remove that. But let us talk about why do people play games and why is gaming such a big activity on social media, on any mobile device, PlayStation, Xbox? Why is gaming so big? So if you remember that we always talk about this one very interesting concept of what is fun. What is fun, if I have to define, people will come with different definitions of fun. Right. But in a gaming environment, the way we define fun is, imagine there is an x-axis and a y-axis. X-axis says experience level and y-axis is difficulty. Now, if your experience is just very low, let's say you are at level 0, and I give you something whose difficulty is 10, you will definitely lose. Yeah. And you will keep losing and you will keep getting frustrated. However, let's say your experience level is 10 and I give you something very easy. You will keep doing this and you will get bored. Yeah. So what is fun? Fun is the zone where I'm able to somehow match your difficulty level and your experience level and give it a little push so that you can use your experience and push a little to hit that difficulty level. Yeah. And that is what is fun when you are feeling challenged. And once you start feeling fun, that whole state is called the state of flow. Yeah. When you don't realize that time has passed, and I'm sure a lot of listeners here would have played video games, which they could just play for hours and they don't know how the time went because they went in the state of flow. So gaming and gamification is all about balancing these variables of experience level, difficulty, challenges, boss levels, and these different frameworks which keep you as a customer in the state of flow.
Right.
And if you have such a product, and gamification is, by the way, not just in games. One of my favorite examples is a learning app called Duolingo, which uses the same flow in learning. Or GOQii, for example, if you use our health app, you will get into that same flow where we keep leveling you up and we giving you challenges. So I think that is the framework of how you can make something which is fun.
Okay, Vishal, let's give a little context to our viewers who are listening to this, and let's tell them why we started off with online games. What is your association with it, and what was that time when you start thinking that you also feel this pull towards video games that you want to explore?
I started coding when I was 13, and my first computer was a Sinclair ZX Spectrum. I was one of those kids who was intrigued by computers in general, and that led to me learning coding on my own. There were no institutes per se. But that eventually led me to start learning gaming. And I think that's one of the few things as a kid, because you play a lot of games. Right. I had the Nintendo Game Boy and all those Ataris of the world. And that led to me creating India's first and largest gaming company at that point of time called India Games. Right. And of course, India Games business was around mobile games. We pioneered the whole idea of creating games on mobile devices.
And we're talking about 2000s.
I'm talking about the early 2000s, 2001, 2002. And we created multiple games based on different intellectual properties. We licensed brands like Spider-Man, Predator, every Bollywood movie we've done games on. And that was a great experience and great journey because I was able to literally translate my hobby and passion into a business. And if you look at my journey as an entrepreneur, I think that has been the common aspect that even now with GOQii, I was able to take my love for health, fitness, adventure sports, and gaming and combine that into a business itself. So I think as far as I am concerned, I come from a gaming mindset. I like to be challenged. I like to be always told, or what I've always been told, that what I'm doing is crazy, it's stupid, I can't do it. And that kind of, in a way, motivates me to go exactly and do that.
Right. Were you under pressure of, side by side doing your education as well? Were your parents telling you that?
Not at all. In fact, to the extent that it's funny that, in school, I barely passed. But I got into a good college, by the way, very close to this place called Podar College. Okay. And that too because of the sports. I was a volleyball player, so I got into sports quota. And again, it was an interesting choice on why I chose commerce. Because commerce didn't require attendance, and being a sportsman, I think that in science, unlike today's kids where they have 25 options to choose what they do in college, for us, it was just art, science, and commerce. All the smart students took up science. All the average students took commerce, and the others one went for arts. And in my case, the decision was more simpler because my criteria was, do you require attendance? And since didn't require attendance, I chose commerce and R.A. Podar College. And while I was in college, I actually focused 90% of my time in building my business. So college was more an extracurricular activity for me. And that's a different thing that I didn't even complete college. I was not able to clear past TY BCom. So it's interesting times for me because What I actually spent my time in college was I was very active in the community, in the college festivals, in all the other stuff around college.
And you must be a favorite among your friends also, because you used to give them a sneak peek as to what your new game is
Absolutely.
going to be.
Not just that, I was even the favorite among my professors, and I even had won the outstanding student award, even though I never really attended college. So that was really funny.
Lovely. So what memory comes back to you when you think of the first success that you tasted at that point in time? When did you think that this is something that I want to go ahead with and build my career on?
See, this is not a time, I'm talking about 1998, 99. There were no VCs, there were no investors, there was no startup. The word investor, startup was not existent. So for me, it was really about, I love doing this and I'm able to make money using it, so I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
It's only in 1999 when we raised our first round of capital from venture capitalists, that kind of made this into a much more serious business, because suddenly I had a lot of money and a lot of investors riding on top of our business. And it's funny that I started my fundraise process there with these two guys who came to my office. They said they are from this company called Price Waterhouse. I was like, who's Price Waterhouse? I had no idea. And they told me they're investment bankers. And that's when I realized that, मेरे को लगा banker मतलब जो bank manager है. They said, no, we are not that banker. We'll help you raise money and this and that. And then they took us to meet some investors. And before that, they had to create a business model and business plan. And I had no idea what it was. And that's where all the MBAs listening to this, they created this Excel sheet where first sheet के अंदर आप press करो तो एक दूसरा sheet खुलता है, दूसरे को press करो तो तीसरा, तीसरे को press करो तो चौथा. So they created this completely connected Excel sheet with all these numbers, and you change one number and the entire sheet changed. And I was like, what the hell is this? But it was funny that when we started meeting investors, the investors loved looking at this Excel sheet. It is funny that we thought that we will raise 2 crores. But in a matter of a few weeks, we had commitment of almost 3.5 crores. And I'm talking about 1999. You can imagine that 3.5 crores is like, 40 crores today. So even without understanding what my business was, what the plan was, I ended up having that kind of money to run the business. So that was a very interesting times. Of course, we have now seen even more crazier times in the startup ecosystem where people who don't even have a business have raised millions and millions of dollars. But these were the early days of literally what we call the first .com bubble.
What were your key 3 learnings, if I have to ask, from the first business that you did at India Games? What sort of challenges you were seeing on a day-to-day basis once you have the capital that comes with a lot of responsibilities on your shoulder as well, and you're not as free as you probably were when you started, right? And you could have gone crazy with your ideas. Now you have to answer a few people who are in the system. So what were your first key 3 learnings that you had in the long 10-year, 12-year journey that you have had?
I think the first key learning was that whatever plan you make, it fails some or the other way. You think this has happened, 99.99% your plan never happens. You always underestimate your expenses and you always overestimate your revenues. Jabki actually ulta hota hai. Your expenses are a lot more than you think and your revenue is a lot less than you think. So I think that's a very important realization, and especially again, people who live from Excel sheets and look at all these models, those things don't work necessarily in startups. And that's because we are working with so much uncertainty and so many variables. So the second thing I realized, that you need to get comfortable with chaos. Again, in MBAs and in traditional system, you want to put processes, you want to put systems, you want to get predictability as much as possible. But in the startup world, predictability is not predictable. So if you are coming from an environment where you are used to having things in control, you are just not going to survive in a startup. You in fact need to embrace chaos and embrace that everything is going to go wrong and you need to be operating in that environment. So I tell people that in a startup, you fail 365 days a year and you may or may not succeed. You don't know what day it is. So if you're always thinking about that one day where you are going to succeed, you will be very depressed because that day may not come. So it's about enjoying the failures. It's about enjoying the process and the grind and enjoying everything which is going wrong. But having the hope that it will be over or it will get better at some point of time. So that hope is there, but you have to live and be comfortable in the current situation.
Okay, Vishal, a little strolling on your Instagram that I did last night, it revealed that you're good friends with Vijay Shekhar Sharma, another pioneer, another entrepreneur who came up with a very successful product, which is the Paytm that we're talking about. What sort of energy, business lessons or acumen do you derive from this personality? And why do you think Paytm has become what it has become today?
So again, Vijay and I go back, 10, 15 years, maybe 15 plus years, right? When I was running India Games, which was the pioneer in mobile gaming, Vijay was running 197, which was in the whole VAS space. They were running whole platforms for mobile operators. They had a caller ringback tone platform. They had a voice platform. They were very, very entrenched in the entire mobile VAS ecosystem. And I think one very important thing which I learned from Vijay was, and a lot of people forget this, that Vijay originally wanted to go public with 197 way back in the late 2020s, in the early 2020s, I think 2008, 2009 was when they were looking to do an IPO. And that was a failed IPO. They were not able to finally list 197. Yeah. And on the hindsight, that was the best thing which happened to them, because had they listed during that time, again, maybe I'm getting the years a few here and there, but had they listed that time, their trajectory would have been very different, because that would have forced them to again develop the mobile VAS business and not take the kind of risks. And I remember speaking to Vijay vividly at that point of time when he wanted to bet on this whole mobile wallet. And everybody again thought that he was crazy. And I think that's the whole thing, right? That one of the common traits in entrepreneurs with these kind of ideas, you will see that they have to dream big, and their dreams initially don't make sense at all. When I told people gaming is going to be big in the early 2000s, or today when we are doing preventative healthcare, and I'm saying preventive healthcare is going to be much more bigger than traditional healthcare systems. People don't get it, and people think it's a foolish idea. And that's what is the starting point of people like me and Vijay. Yeah. So with Vijay, I always learn having very, very big and audacious dreams. And the second thing is, Vijay is extremely passionate about the consumer. He is always talking to, whoever are his users and get their insights. And just think about this concept of the sound box which he created. कि दुकानदार को सुनना चाहिए कि पैसा आ गया. No MBA, I'm sorry to say, no MBA or no Google or Flipkart or any of these large companies could even think about this, because for them, consumer insight comes from Excel sheets and surveys and whatever data or analytics they are seeing. But you need to connect emotionally to the consumer. Yeah. That is the best analytics, is the emotional connect you can have with your user. And I can tell you that Vijay, when I have traveled extensively across the country, and I've always seen how passionately he connects with the dukandar and asks them कि ये क्यों नहीं चल रहा है, वो क्यों नहीं चल रहा है. And that's how he figured out that one of the biggest problems of the shopkeepers were that whenever a payment happened, they had to figure out कि पैसा आया कि नहीं. They had to log into some app, to some system, or look at SMS and things like that, right? So they just made it so seamless. So what Vijay told me is that they were trying to simulate the galla. दुकानदार के पास जो गल्ला होता है, तो literally that was the mindset of creating the sign box. So I think Vijay is extremely passionate. He's very, very audacious.
Absolutely, absolutely true. And one aspect that you brought, which is listening to the people who you are serving. So probably Vijay actually going and talking to the gallawala or the shop owners is where the soundbox idea actually came from. And that's what you need to do as a product manager also, working in a particular product for any company possible or brand possible. What are these things that is an absolute must when you are thinking about a new product, and how do you think that it sticks with the people in the common in the common minds or the common people's mind that we talk about?
See, I think again, here is where there is a big challenge. So I remember, I will not name this institute, or I will not name this company. We hired a very senior executive in the company. And his idea was, we said, we are going to make a game. Here is the concept. And he was like, let me hire an agency to come up with the name of this game. And I was like, why would you hire an agency to name a game? And let me hire an agency to research what should be the characters in a game. That's not how games are made. Games are made with the game designer, the game developer, thinking about a concept and thinking about a name and creating these characters and world. But when you come from the structured traditional MBA environment of Unilever and these kind of companies, for them everything is a product, and uske upar 3 C's of marketing, 3 P's of wo, 3 M of wo lagao, and research karo, product ke naam lao, 25 naam lao. So the first thing they wanted to do was hire an agency to think of a name for your game, which was very, very counterintuitive for me. And I think that's where the challenge happens in the old school of thinking of using data. And I'm not saying don't use data. Data is important. But you need to finally look at it from the lens of your consumer.
Yeah.
Consumer does not know what they want. So if you survey somebody and try to do this, they will not, the joke is, right, they would have always said that, for example, think of a product like Uber. Taxis were there all the time. We never had an issue. We traveled everywhere. We could get taxis. If you had surveyed a consumer, they would have never said we need something like Uber. So Uber was an unrecognized need. So today, if you want to innovate, you cannot go to what I call known problems and known solutions, or unknown solutions to known problems. You have to go to unknown problems and unknown solutions. And that is what innovation is. It is seeking what you cannot see or feel. And that is where the innovation comes in.
Lovely. Any products that you use personally that you're a fan of, or you probably have seen and then you thought in your mind that how did they have the guts or the balls to do it?
So, there are many such products. It's not one or two. And again, I'm a big user of a product like Paytm. Today, I travel with absolutely no wallet or cash. And I think that's become the new thing as far as India is concerned. The other product, which again we all use extensively, is a product like Uber or Ola, which has created transportation on demand. But I think when you look at interesting categories, I do believe that health is one such product category which will need to be focused on extensively. And that too, not just health, but how do you prevent people from falling sick? So let me give you the example which is happening. So imagine there is a highway where there are lots of accidents. And the solution they come up with, that is highway mein itne sare accidents ho rahe hain, so they set up more garages and have more mechanics on the highway. What does that do? That doesn't stop the accidents. It actually creates more accidents, because now all these mechanics and garages want business and they are figuring out ki yaar kis tarah aur inko dhanda mile. Versus the solution to make sure that you are less accidents in a highway is by having the signing. You need to make sure drivers are wearing seat belts, there are proper rules are being followed, guidelines are being followed, road is proper. So the solution to reduce accidents is not mechanics and garages, but better drivers, better cars and better roads. Similarly, in healthcare, what is happening is people think that by creating more hospitals and doctors and medicine, I'm going to make people healthier. Actually not the way. It's the other way around. By having this infrastructure, you will end up having more sick people, because What needs to change is the underlying behavior itself. And the underlying behavior here is making sure you are active, making sure you are not eating junk food, you're not smoking, and all of those things. So I think preventive healthcare is now going to be the big frontier, and that's what we at GOQii are focused on. But talking about some other disruptions, I do believe that the learning space is going to change drastically. And of late, my go-to application, of course, is ChatGPT, not because of just the AI ability of ChatGPT, but I think ChatGPT is like having a personal assistant who is a PhD of every known topic in the world.
And that's probably why a lot of these alternate education tools, platforms are also coming into the picture. We are also in the business of providing these certification programs through Walt Uni as well. And you probably have also seen a lot of these EdTech firms also coming up in the last 2-3 years, more so because of the pandemic. What do you think about that space? And if you think that if MBAs don't cater to the leapfrogging that you need to do, these can.
So first of all, let's understand. So there are a few categories like education, health, to some extent, let's say sports, to some extent, even leadership. There are certain categories where the problem is not information or access. Today, with all respects to you, I can Google and find any subject and learn anything for free. Yeah. There is enough videos, blogs, content, groups online to learn anything. Similarly, if I want to be fit, there are 1,000 articles and blogs and exercise which are all free, which will tell me what to do. And similarly, if I want to learn any skill, I want to be a musician, I want to be playing the guitar, the tabla, anything, there are free tools available to do that. So the problem is not content or even access to this content. The problem is motivation.
Right.
So even at GOQii, what we are trying to solve is not the problem of content or health, but motivation. Similarly, when it comes to learning, a lot of platforms which are, I would say, just promising you access are not going to survive in the long term.
Yeah.
It is more about providing you the motivation and guidance to reach where you want to go.
What is your biggest failure that you think you could have avoided?
I mean, I fail every day. So, I would say that failure for me is what I do every day. So it is not one or two. I can count hundreds and hundreds of failures in, what I could have done better. But that's the other part, right? I don't regret anything which I have done because at that point of time, that was the right decision.
Let's talk about gamification now, which is something that you have used throughout your life, whether it's developing India games or whether it's developing GOQii right now. What exactly is gamification for you in a product, if I have to ask you? And how do you simplify it to a 18-year-old listening to this?
So first of all, again, gamification is a very abused word. सबको लगता है कि यार हर एक चीज में gamify कर दो इसको. मतलब अभी वो ऐसा हो गया कि let me gamify this, let me gamify that. The reality is most people use the word gamification without even understanding what gamification is. People just think that because I can put a leaderboard or give you some points or put an avatar, suddenly I have made it into a game. It's absolutely not. Gamification is about redefining your product itself from what I explained earlier, like a leveling up method. Yeah. But more than the leveling up method, it's all around, let me use the word, making a consumer's invest emotionally into your product. A lot of times when people play games, they become emotionally attached to that character. वो रात को भी उनके दिमाग में वो character चल रहा होता है. But when you are using your Uber app, you are not suddenly thinking of your Uber driver or the car, because that is not, it is it's serving a need, but it is not emotionally connecting with you in a way. Games are means of creative expression and entertainment. Just like how movies have an impact on you, a game has an impact on you. So when you are thinking of a gamification, the first question I ask people is, what do you call your users? And they're like, yeah, we call them customer I said, that's the first problem if you are trying to gamify a system, you need to give your users a unique identity. Like we call our users players. Some people call them, if you have, in game, Pokemon Go mein, people were using. So the thing is that the gamer always associates himself with a very different kind of terminology and lingo. Similarly, in a game, everybody talks of what level they are in. In a game, everybody talks about who are they competing against. So it's about creating the whole framework around that. The other thing about gamification, which is very important, is about figuring out how do you engage a player of your game in different levels. And the way to think about it is that, there is this whole framework of dopamine, oxytocin, endorphins, serotonin, and of course cortisol. So there are different mechanisms to induce these chemicals in your brain, which makes you attached to a particular product or community. So dopamine is when you get likes, or when you're getting coins or something which is
social
hitting
media,
you. So social media and like buttons, all this is all around. Or when you get bonus and these coins are falling off, these are all giving you dopamine hits. Or for example, when you are creating a team and you are playing, any kind of team activity gives you oxytocin. That's very important. And then when teams are collaborating, when you are helping somebody else in a game, any time of help gives you serotonin. And then any kind of physical activity gives you endorphins. So you need to almost think about how you are building these various aspects in your game. Why do you think Call of Duty and all these other multiplayer game with teams are so engaging? Because people are having that feeling of camaraderie and even rivalry with other teams. Even we are all virtual.
Right.
So gaming and gamification is a lot beyond that. And I think today for products to think of gamification, they need to first fundamentally play games themselves. So the first question I ask people, whoever is talking about gaming, I said, which was the last game did you play? And most of the time they will talk about some game they played during their college. And that's when I realized that most of these people are not even serious about what they're talking about, because gamification will come naturally to somebody who is a player of games. If you play games, you would exactly know what language and what context can you bring into your product.
Which are your favorite games now?
Well, of late, I've been playing a lot of FIFA. With my sons, they are completely addicted to it. I've been playing Valorant, which is good. And of course, I've been playing the new build of FAU-G, which people will be seeing very, very soon. And from a language learning perspective, I use a lot of Duolingo, which again is a game and as well as language learning tool.
You seem like that you are in touch with the millennials. You seem like you know what's going on in the world of games till now, because you yourself an avid gamer, right? Now, first question is, why did you think that you want to get into fitness tech, right? And within the fitness tech space, because of the subscription and the values and the kind of money that you're charging them, you're catering to an audience which is an age group of 35 to 45. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's primarily what my idea looking at GOQii is. So why getting into this, and why targeting a target age group which possibly is very difficult to convert?
So again, you talked about two things, right? So why did I enter this? So it was interesting, when I was in college, I was a national level volleyball player, fit and athletic. But when I was running India Games, I almost became a volleyball. I was 120 kgs in weight. I used to have pizza and Pepsi as my daily diet. So I was extremely unhealthy. And that's when I decided that, hey, let me try and get healthy. I joined the gym, I joined diet programs, I used apps like MyFitnessPal, but kuch nahi hua. What worked was, I started working with a remote coach. He said, WhatsApp karo mereko, batao kya kha rahe ho, kya pee rahe ho. And he would every day WhatsApp message me, call me, kya kar rahe ho, ye karo, wo karo. To cut a long story short, by just remotely connecting with a coach, I was able to then, run my first half marathon. I ended up running 14 half marathons. I have done ultra marathons. I have trekked to Everest Base Camp and so on and so forth. So I was able to kind of change my lifestyle. And then one very interesting thing happened. Once I sold my company to Disney, I was given a non-compete that I can't do games.
Yeah.
So it almost became that I can't do games, which was my love. But I then realized that one of the big areas which require my expertise is health. Because I think health is not a problem of information, it's a problem of behavior. So what the coach was effectively doing was making me accountable. He was giving me data, he was giving me challenges, he was giving me tasks. So that's when I connected the dots and I said that this is a space ripe for disruption. And by the way, our big movement has actually come post-COVID. So what demonetization did to the world of finance and wireless payments and all of contactless payments, etc., that COVID has done to the world of health. Now what has suddenly happened is every person is suddenly aware of SpO2, blood pressure, ये वो सब data, सब terms सबको पता चल गई. दूसरा, पहले people used to have some report somewhere, nobody ever saw it. Now everybody has reports on their phone as PDFs. They all had the vaccine certificates. They all have used online consultation. They all have experienced what it is to do remote care, because we all had to do remote care during COVID. So what has happened is, while you are thinking that 35-year-olds, but every person in the planet has now experienced remote care in some or the other way. So this is the perfect time. And governments have also realized that if I have to invest, I can't create more hospitals and doctors because utne hai hi nahi. Matlab I can't magically have so many more infrastructure. So what they can do is incentivize people to live healthy. So what has now happened is that what was initially thought as ki some small set of people will do it is now become the goal for every insurance company, every government, every employer, because companies ne dekha ki unke employees during COVID, with all the health issues, a lot of senior employees died and so much disruption happened in companies. So now everybody is thinking that how do I get on a path to health? And what we are doing as GOQii is creating that platform to enable that. So our biggest partners are actually banks, insurance companies, employers, and the government. In fact, we recently have gone live in the UK with GOQii UK, where we are working with the NHS to provide our preventive healthcare platforms to patients when they come to clinics. Because even a large player like NHS is now saying that how do I get into prevention and not the other way around?
Right. And do you think the adoption rates are as high as you probably, as somebody who is an entrepreneur in this segment, has been in India so far?
So that's exactly what I'm saying. Right now, adoption rate is no longer optional. It is becoming part of people's life. Schools are now doing it. Colleges are now doing it. Employers are doing it. So now it is becoming an integral part of every organization itself. Insurance companies are bundling us into their insurance plans. So we have GOQii have launched this amazing concept where we are able to dynamically change your insurance premium or charge you or increase your sum assured without any extra charges based on your health data itself.
Right. But do you think that, because you have a lot of data that is there and the scale, I'm assuming that the scale will go up and up and you'll have millions of people accumulated in one platform, and like yours, there'll be other platforms also getting in a lot of data of these people. Do you see any threat posing because of this amount of personal data related to the health of a particular nation, which can be manipulated or misused in the future?
So once again, I would say that the government is putting together a data protection bill. And data in the wrong hands can definitely be a challenge, which is why we need to make sure that our data is stored in India, handled by companies who are doing it responsibly, and putting the right framework is absolutely very, very important. Talking about use and misuse of data, the regulators are very clear that you can use data to incentivize people. You can't use this to disincentivize or penalize anybody. So the plans which are getting created are not around कि आपका हम premium कम कर देंगे, आपका premium बढ़ा देंगे. It is about how do we discount your premium, how do we give you a benefit. So the whole framework is around incentivization of healthy behavior. It is not around disincentivization of any kind. I think that is the fundamental difference in how the regulators and all the people are looking at it. Of course, there will be challenges around use of data, especially when it comes to data which is, extremely, let me use the word genetic or clinical, and it is extremely important that there are the right rules in play for that.
This is a question that I had in mind when I first saw the business model that GOQii operates in, and you sell subscriptions to people, right? And when we talk about subscriptions, we have seen over the years that Indians in general have a tendency to not go the subscription path because of whatever issues there are, commitment issues, whether they want to pay for the services once they actually see that service in front of them. They don't want to overpay because they don't know, they want to monthly budget and all that problems that probably exist and probably will exist in the future as well. So is it safe to say that your product right now is for the top 5% who actually is a believer of a subscription model, who actually is a user of a Netflix or a Amazon Prime, or who spends their money month on month?
Almost 70% of our users are from tier 2 and tier 3 cities.
Wow.
So the way you have to think about what we are trying to do is, it is around saying that can you invest 3,000 rupees on your health so that you don't have to spend 30,000 on medicines? So I don't think so. It's about putting a subscription. Today, if you are Bimar and you are diabetic, you are spending 3,000 rupees a month only on medicine.
But that's the thing that the insurance companies also wanted to, propagate or tell people for the longest time, right?
Exactly. And that's the whole problem today, that insurance is something which people can't see immediately. It is one of those things which is in case kuch hua tab insurance kick in hota hai, right? So the problem is that what we are trying to do is gamified, which I was telling you. So in the case of GOQii, if you walk 10,000 steps for 10 days, you will immediately get enough GOQii cash or GOQii points to buy a protein powder or a protein bar. So you are getting what I call instant gratification. The problem of health is that it takes time for you to see results. Insurance premium 1 साल के लिए लेता है आपसे, तो 1 साल तक किसी को रुकना नहीं है. So what we've been able to create is a whole framework which gives you instant gratification as well as the long-term benefit of doing this, which is why a platform like us works, because consumers are actually getting more benefits from the money they are investing. So that is the key. Of course, if you are going to deliver any product or service where the consumer does not see value, they are not going to subscribe to it or pay for it. So the key thing for us is to show the value to people. So in the case of GOQii, you pay a subscription, you become part of our platform. You can then buy products at massive discounts. And these are protein, snacks, supplements, all kinds of health products. You can then get insurance at a much lower rate. Then you can get to banks, and banks will work with you much. So we are creating an ecosystem that once you are healthy, you have 20,000 benefits which is coming to you, because everybody wants to attract this healthy customer.
Do you hire from IIMs?
We don't explicitly hire from any institutes. However, if that is not a reason why we disqualify somebody either. So let's put it that way. But we don't seek people from these institutes proactively. And there is a very, very simple reason, right? Because I like to work with what I call underdogs, because they are more hungry to prove. I think the good or the bad thing about our IITs, IIMs is that they already have so many choices. And today with all these funds, etc., they even can start their companies. But what we need are people with a lot more hunger.
Along with the hunger, what are the kind of skills that you look for in people? And what do you think that these students who are probably in the B schools also are probably not need to develop or need to acquire in themselves to become part of this immense world of opportunities that's India going to create in the future?
See, I think once again, right, I think people are not connected to reality. Just the way how, product managers are reading reports and, looking at customer behavior rather than talking to the customer. I do believe that a lot of the B school guys are just meeting with people in the campus and companies who come to the campus, and they are in their own echo chamber. The reality is far different. So I would say that if you are a student, MBA student or any engineering, you need to go meet startup folks. Today there are so many startup events happening. Mumbai, we've set up Tech Entrepreneurs Association of Mumbai. We are doing hackathons, mixers, same thing. Everywhere in India today, you can be involved in startup ecosystem. So I would say that for them to be more relevant, they need to engage with the startup ecosystem. They can be part of it in many ways. That is going to give them a lot more experience versus trying to be in their own echo chamber and do this. Second thing I would say, from not just MBA, I would say from any education perspective, and in fact I tell this to my kids also, that today's education is not going to prepare them for tomorrow, because tomorrow is going to be very, very different. With the advent of ChatGPT and AI and generative AI, I can tell you with almost certainty that BPOs, first level jobs, are going to be completely taken over by AI. You call a BPO, you won't even know that is a person handling a call a bot or a human. Only in level 2, escalations might be human, but all first level of customer service is going to move to a bot of some kind. That completely changes. It's for the first time where white collared are going to get impacted. So far in the industrial revolution, the blue collars got affected, and then the lower end of the white collar, or the lower end jobs were gone. But this is for the first time where people are going to see redundancies at higher levels. So if they are not prepared for tomorrow, they are going to be outdated.
And probably that's why a lot of the buzz is also being heard. And that probably again brings me back to the kind of offerings that we have through our certification programs as well. People who are interested, please see the link in the description, visit the link in the description and find about these courses more. Coming back to you once again with respect to what you are building, or the kind of ecosystem that we have in India in terms of the startups that you are seeing. How conducive do you feel right now India is for having more of these GOQiis? What do you think is the need right now? And as a VC, which are the sectors or the industries that you see that are going to be booming in the next 5-10 years?
No, India is absolutely the biggest bright spot in the whole world today. If you see, there was this very common thing of BRICS economy, right? If you see BRICS, may say Brazil is going through its own challenges, Russia is busy in war with Ukraine, China has its own challenges, South Africa. So BRICS में से सिर्फ आई बचा है अभी. India is the only bright spot today in the world. If you are a serious investor, this is the only place. Second thing, India is the only place where, if you look at technology, whether it is UPI, whether the government has invested so much on tech infrastructure that we have far exceeded digital payments than anywhere else. So we actually have not only the environment but the digital infrastructure to build products, which is why every investor is looking at India, because we are going to be really the fastest growing economy, and hopefully coming soon on our GDP numbers too.
Lovely. One advice that you want these students who are watching this podcast, that you want to leave them with respect to the kind of roles that they would need to take up, with respect to the kind of future that they might have, and the kind of trajectory that they can build for themselves, because you being somebody who actually did not go through that traditional, studying in an IIT, IIM, and then developing something of their own.
So I think you need to seriously think about the ROI. Today, whatever fees you are paying to your MBA institutes, if you had to put that same money in a startup, would you be far better? I think that's the challenge and the question I have for all of you, because this education, may or may not get you there, but that money invested at the right startup or a right place or getting you the right experience will definitely take you to the next level.
On that note, I'm going to draw an end to this lovely conversation that we have had. Vishal, thank you very much for taking out time. Do tell us in the comments below how you like this conversation. Do make sure that you check the courses that I mentioned in the description below, and do ask questions to Vishal in the comments as well, and we'll make sure that we'll send a few of these doubts and the questions to him as well to answer. Do tell us which other guests you want to watch in the Conversations Cafe podcast edition, and we would try and bring them as much as possible. Thank you once again, Vishal, for your time, and I hope that you grow GOQii to be at the point that you have seen or dreamed in your life.
Thank you.